Hello, Monetization Nation. In the last episode with Craig Willett, we discussed his entrepreneurial journey and 4 secrets to success and happiness that he learned over his career. In today's lesson, we're going to discuss what it means to leave a legacy with our businesses. In this entrepreneurial journey you've had, what has been the greatest home run that you hit?
Well, I think I described it, taking something from nothing. You know, I had saved in my CPA business. I had been very successful as a CPA. In fact, I testified in Congress and had gone to lunch in the private dining room in the Capitol building, which I don't think even private citizens can access now, given the situation. But, I had a lot of success. But for me, the passion to be able to create something from nothing, both as a CPA when I started my own firm, to then in real estate development, taking an opportunity that came up, the trust that had invited me to be part of it went upside down, and they needed cash, and I was able to buy them out. But that ability to express from nothing, to where you can take a product from nothing and then make it prominent to where it resonates with the marketplace and people want your product and grow it. And I think to develop over $750 million of real estate from nothing. And I really didn't start with a silver spoon in my mouth by any stretch of the imagination. Worked hard for everything we ever had. And so I think for me, the greatest home run is to be able to take something that start from nothing and end up with something. And it's not the money they ended up with, it's all the relationships and all the lives that you touch as you build a successful business.
Yeah. I know as entrepreneurs get more successful and get further along in their career, they become more and more focused on those relationships and more focused on that legacy. Was there ever a time in your career when you weren't quite as focused on the relationships or at that legacy, right? And talk to me about that transformation in you.
Well, I think what really happened for me that made me step back and realize that you take it for granted. And not that I didn't have a lot of good relationships, but to accomplish at the levels we were accomplishing, it took a lot. And my firm was growing and we were hiring a fair number of people, but it still took a lot of effort on my part. And so, during your career, you can have a whole bunch of lists of things to accomplish and things that you put yourself in the middle of to kind of help assure the success of your company. And while I had many opportunities to give in the community and serve in the Chamber of Commerce and other charity boards, it was great. But I realized that my drive to continue to do more and respond to the demand put a toll on me. My health maybe suffered a little bit. And then when the financial crisis hit, I don't think I had anything left in the tank.
Yeah.
And I'm not a quitter, so I was continuing to fight through. But I remember a day sitting in my office or standing in my office with a guy who was working with me to kind of negotiate with some of the banks who were struggling themselves because the government was putting pressure on them to not have any commercial real estate in their portfolio. And so all of a sudden, instead of banks offering me money on silver platters, they're all of a sudden want to take everything back and get rid of any note they currently have with you. I got a call from one of my attorneys, and I remember when I was talking to him, I had the phone up to my ear, and all of a sudden the whole left side of my body went numb. And I told the guy that was in the room, I said, I'm numb all on the left side, and his wife works for cardiac emergency room.
Yeah.
So he told me to get off the phone, and I lost my voice. He threw some aspirin down me, called 911. Next thing you know, I'm on the couch in my office, shirt ripped open, and the ambulance was there, and they were throwing nitroglycerin down my throat and put me on an EKG monitor and rushed me off to the hospital. Before I went, I had some people that worked for me administer to me a blessing, and I also had my assistant call my wife to have her meet me there. While I was there, I realized something. I had given myself a date by which if things didn't turn around, I would close the business down. Now, no business or entrepreneur really ever wants to close a business down. And that day had come. It was my dad's birthday. It was February 1st. And that was the date by which I said I would make the final decision of what to do. And I was nowhere near thinking of it that day. The last thing I wanted to do was really think about it. But as I lay there in the hospital waiting for the doctors to tell me what was wrong, I realized that I probably hit the end of the rope for me. Had exhausted all my physical capacities. And when the doctor came in, he said, "What are you doing here?" I kind of laughed. I said, "Well, I was hoping you could tell me." And he said, "We've run all the tests. It doesn't look like you've had a heart attack," which was our concern. But he says, "My guess is you're under a lot of stress." And I kind of smiled. I thought, "How did you know?" And I remember sitting there and I asked Carol to take me back to the office and that I'd get my car and bring it home, but I was going to stay for a little while. And she kind of said, "Well, why would you want to stay there for a little while?" I said, "Because I want to call the key employees of my business in and let them know that I've made the decision that I need to unwind this business." And I spent the next 3 years unwinding a business. It got fairly sizable and I wanted to do it in an honorable way, and I did. But it was a turning point. And as I look back, sometimes my desire to meet my objectives really may have stood in the way of nurturing some relationships. I mean, I really liked it when my bank would call me in and ask me how much money I needed the next year and tell me all about the projects. And I asked them one time, I said, "Well, why do you have me come in every year and talk about what my objectives are?" They said, "Well, you're one of the only businesses that ever does everything that they say and then some more. So we want to make sure we have enough money for you." Well, they were the second bank in the country to get closed down during the financial crisis in the whole United States, not just Arizona. And so that really put me dealing with the FDIC, and it put me scrambling. But as I look back, my wife said, "Did you have to do that many deals?" And to be honest with you, maybe I didn't. But you kind of get that drive for success. And sometimes how much you do doesn't matter as how well you do. And we did well, but there's some relationships I wish I'd spent more time on. But they weren't family and they weren't with my wife, thank goodness.
Yeah. What a profound question that every single entrepreneur should ask themselves is, do I really need to do that many deals?
How much
Can I simplify? Yeah. Can I simplify? Can I take a little less time in my business and a little bit more time on those relationships that matter?
And Nathan, one thing that I've thought about a lot since then is, and I came up with it early on. A friend said to me, "What's your number?" And I said, "What do you mean, what's your number?" He goes, "Well, how much do you think is enough for you?" And I never told somebody outside of my family what that number was, but I had exceeded that number by a multiple of 4, not just in amount of net worth, but in recurring income. And today I'm back to that original number, and I'm a lot happier. But I can tell you, so it came down dramatically, 75%. But I can tell you that it's really important to know what's enough and sufficient for your needs. And there's no limit to the amount of success you can experience. But there's a limit to the amount we can give to an enterprise because it will take it all.
And now, so I know some of the things in your personal life and your plans and what you're working on. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about that because I think it's really relevant. Because you were in a spot where you had far surpassed what you needed for the rest of your life. You didn't need any more money, but you were driven to keep doing the next deal and keep building and growing your business, as all of us are, right? That's the entrepreneurial drive. And you had this kind of wake up call in your life, and it made you kind of rethink a little bit where you wanted to go. And I know that within the next couple of weeks, because you've scaled back your business and you're not doing those new deals, you've got a new adventure that you're starting in your life. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Just a little preface to it. Part of, and no excuse for it, but part of the drive was you want something enduring. And with the enterprise I had built, I was hoping that my children someday would be old enough, but they were still fairly young themselves. They weren't even, they were just beginning. Some of them were just only beginning their college education and just graduating high school. So that success came at a young age for them. And I was hopeful that maybe I could teach them some of my tricks. Now it's come full circle. As you say, one of my endeavors has always been to go on another full-time mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And, I've been working at it for quite a while. In fact, I draw on my years as the CPA and look at which people had probably the best, quote unquote, retirement or financial security, and where did they invest and how did they invest to give them that freedom and flexibility to do what they want when they wanted to. And while I had achieved that a number of years ago, I'm still involved in a public company, and that demanded some travel to Israel and a few things. And then I kind of gave that up, and I kind of let it be known that I was ready to do that, and had reached out to where I felt I could be effective, and no response. And so I didn't figure that was the right time. But about a year ago, well, not quite a year ago, last August, I had reached a year of having my world's championship horse for sale. And I had put him up for sale intentionally. Not that I don't love showing horses, and I've accomplished well there, but I did it so I could serve God better. And he hadn't sold. And I remember kneeling down and praying and saying, Heavenly Father, why haven't you accepted my sacrifice of my horse? And because he hadn't sold, and he should have. He was very accomplished. And the answer came, you haven't offered what I wanted you to offer. And he told me what that was. And so I sat down with Carol and talked about what that would be. And so we decided to make that sacrifice. Within hours of implementing that decision, the horse sold. We started looking. What we needed to do is sell our home in Arizona. We started looking for another home in Arizona and couldn't find one that we felt good about. And so we started talking about serving a mission again full time. And then we started talking about when we would leave, how long we would go, and where we would go. And within about a week of asking ourselves and looking, our phone rang and someone called saying, we have this need. And it was exactly in the same place we had tried 2 years earlier to volunteer. And the opportunity came, and with COVID, we've made ourselves ready and now, but it's been a blessing to the family. Our children, I've formed an investment committee of my 3 sons. My daughter manages the podcast and our personal finances. And then I have a son who's a CPA, a son who's an investment advisor, and a son who's in marketing, and they're handling all the business affairs and the investments that we have. And this isn't how I thought I would teach my children business, but it's been a great experience. We've had fun in the last 6 months having our meetings and assigning responsibilities and having them do some work and come back and report. It's been a great experience. But this is what I've wanted to do for a long time, is share my beliefs in Jesus Christ with people who aren't as familiar with him, and to be able to do that in a personal and real way, and to be able to support other missionaries who are doing that, and to help the church grow. And so we're excited.
And this is a great example of one of the best parts of entrepreneurship. You work really hard, you put the money away, and then you can give back how you really want to give back. You can go volunteer your time and volunteer your leadership skills and expertise to go make a difference for good in a social cause. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, about leaving a legacy?
Well,
and a social contribution?
Yeah, I think I have probably a short comment on that. Not that my other ones were short, but in that respect, Nathan, I really feel you can give money, and not that I haven't, and I do, But the greatest contribution you can make is when you give of yourself. And that we follow that pattern even with our investments. When we invest in a company, they get our money, but they also get some of our expertise. And that's part of the condition of the investment. And not that we need to control, because that's not usually what we ask for, but we want to contribute. And whatever expertise we have, we feel maybe will make things a little bit better. And so for me, I see a lot of people naming buildings, and I've had opportunities to do that, name things after me or my business. And while that's an honor, the greatest honor I can give is the legacy to my children and my grandchildren, that we put God first and we do his work to help bring the world closer to Jesus Christ.
I love that. You mentioned your world champion horse. You have become a world champion equestrian yourself. You want to tell us a little bit about that? And then maybe what is the top lesson that you learned from the equestrian world that entrepreneurs could apply into their businesses?
I wonder sometimes why the success that I had came. But let me tell you how it started. My wife, Carol, loves horses, and she got one when she was 16 years old, and she loved her horse. And she showed some. Shortly after we were married, her horse passed away. And when our youngest child was in school, got into kindergarten, somebody moved into the neighborhood that had horses. And so Carol went out and started renewing her passion and riding horses part-time while our daughter was at school. And one day she came home and she said, they put me on this horse, it's for sale, and I just know somebody's going to buy it. And it was getting close to her birthday. I had to tell her, I said, well, I think you're just going to ruin your birthday a little bit early. I already bought that horse for you. And so I committed to her that I would support her in her passion. And despite all the business endeavors that I had and all of my travels to Washington, D.C. to testify and all the community things and the church things I was involved in, I only missed 2 classes that she participated in. I never missed a show that she did, and she's competed in thousands of classes. I missed 2. But when our 2 youngest children were involved in that, I was golfing with our 2 older ones, and she and helping them in their golf endeavors. And she spent time with them. And she said to me, when the youngest graduated high school, I said, good, now we can get rid of the horses. And she said, no, why don't you try it? And I guess I was a sucker. And actually, it was great. Within, probably a year or 2 of me trying that, I was winning national championships against professional horsemen. And I was an amateur and still am. And then that led to probably going for a world's championship, which was something I set my sights on. So the lessons learned there are, if you're going to do something, do it with passion, make sure you love it, make sure you enjoy it. And don't be afraid to try something new. I'm grateful Carol asked me and invited me to do that. Gave me, I wasn't sure if I could do it, but I was fortunate to have some of the best trainers in the world helping me. And I was fortunate that one of them had a good eye and found a great horse. My first national championship was a horse I borrowed from our son, who was a great horse, but he was serving a mission and he let me use him while I was gone. But it was a year of traveling to go spend time with that horse, get to know the horse, and learn from the best. And I really learned from the best on how to show that horse. And when it came to, I don't compete on Sundays because I'm an amateur. The amateur national championship was on Sunday, so I had to compete against the professionals. And I knew that a year in advance, that it was going to be on, that the amateur was on Sunday. So I had to compete against the professional horse, the professional trainers. And I spent time, I competed in everything I possibly could against the best. And when you go up against the best, you get better. It all came together one day, and it came together several other times where I was unanimous national and world's champion. But I guess my lesson is, my takeaways are, don't be afraid to try something new and learn from the best. And then don't give up, keep working at it and refine your talents and your skills. And don't accept being second place, but it's a subjective decision as to who wins, right? So it's not so much that I won, it was, as one horse photographer recently told me, he said, Craig, you can tell you enjoy it. Look at the smile on your face when you're in there with the horse. It says everything.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was. It wasn't about winning, because winning isn't everything, but it's enjoying it and having fun along the way. And I tell you what, I had a lot of fun.
I'm so glad you got to have that experience. We've had a horse before too, and my daughter did some competing with that, and that was a lot of fun for me to experience that vicariously. I was never good like you were, but it's a fun sport.
I think I got lucky, but you just kind of have a passion. I was trying to keep up with Carol, and it was a lot of fun because this was a lot of that happened during the time where I was winding down the business. So it gave me something to do and something to put some energy into. It was good.
Thank you so much, Craig, for sharing your stories and insights with us today. Here are some of my key takeaways from this episode. Number 1, leaving a legacy is not about being able to make the most money or find the most success. It is all about the relationships we make and the lives we touch through our businesses. Number 2, the greatest contribution we can make is giving ourselves. Number 3, while there isn't a limit to success, there is a limit to what we can give. We should try to avoid falling into the trap of spending too much time and effort on our businesses that we forget about the most important things in our lives, such as our families. Number 4, if we're going to start a business, we need to give it our all and do it with passion. Number 5, we shouldn't be afraid of trying new things. Number 6, a great way to refine our skills is to learn from the best and compete against the best. Number 7, winning isn't everything. We shouldn't get so consumed in our end goals that we forget to enjoy the journey. To learn more about or connect with Craig, you can connect with him on LinkedIn or visit his website at bizsherpa.co. And there's links to both of those sites in the blog post for this episode at monetizationnation.com. You can also get my free ebook about passion marketing and learn how to identify and leverage the highest level passions of our ideal customers at passionmarketing.com. You can also subscribe to Monetization Nation on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, our Facebook group, and on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for joining me for this episode. I wish you success in leaving a lasting legacy.
Do you want to become a better digital monetizer? To receive great monetization stories and secrets, please go to monetizationnation.com and join free. And if you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the show and share it.